and popular players. Mark-Vivien Foé collapsed and died for no apparent reason during this morning's Confederations Cup semi-final.
On June 26, 2003, at the Stade de Gerland in Lyon, an ordinary semi-final match suddenly turned into a tragedy witnessed by millions. Mark-Vivien Foé, Cameroon's midfield dynamo, collapsed near the center circle with no warning. At first, it looked like a cramp, but what happened next shocked the football world. Here are 8 athletes who died in front of their fans.
Cameroon's Confederation Cup match was 15 minutes from the end when tragedy struck. Alone on the Stade Gerland pitch, Foé suddenly fell to the ground.
Mark-Vivien Foé was at the height of his career. The 6'2" midfielder from Cameroon had made his mark in both French and English football. He began his career in Yaoundé, playing for Canon Yaoundé, and quickly rose to prominence in Ligue 1 with Lens and Lyon. His energy and skills led him to the Premier League, where he played for West Ham United and later Manchester City. But everything changed on June 26, 2003. The Confederations Cup semi-final in Lyon was supposed to be a celebration of African football's rise. Cameroon faced Colombia, and Foé was playing in a stadium he once called home. Suddenly, without warning, Foé collapsed on the field. Medical personnel rushed in, performing CPR and desperate resuscitation efforts. For 45 minutes, they fought to save his life. But the stadium fell silent as news spread. Mark-Vivien Foé, just 28 years old, was gone. The official cause? Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a hidden heart condition that increases the risk of sudden death during physical exertion. The football world was stunned. Teammates wept openly on the field. Fans in the stands sat in disbelief. FIFA President Sepp Blatter called it one of the darkest days in the history of football. That evening, during the France-Turkey semi-final, Thierry Henry scored and pointed to the sky in tribute. Both teams stood arm in arm for a moment of silence, united in grief.
A requiem mass was held at Yaoundé Cathedral in the Cameroon capital for footballer Mark-Vivien Foé ahead of his burial.
Foé's funeral became a national event in Cameroon. President Paul Biya and FIFA officials attended. His coffin, draped in the Cameroonian flag, was carried through Yaoundé's streets as thousands watched. The entire nation paused to remember its fallen hero. Today, Foé's final resting place overlooks what was meant to be his greatest gift to Cameroon, a sports academy for young athletes. The complex remains unfinished, a stark reminder of promises unkept. But his widow, Marie-Louise Foé, wouldn't let his dream die. She transformed part of the site into a health sciences training center, ensuring his legacy continues to inspire and uplift. Every year, the football world pauses to remember Mark-Vivien Foé. His number 23 was retired by Manchester City, and Lens retired his number 17. But his true legacy isn't in numbers. It's in the lives he touched and the awareness his passing brought to athlete health. Foé's story is a haunting reminder that even in the prime of life, danger can hide beneath the surface. His death changed football forever, leading to stricter health screenings and a new focus on player safety. But more than rules and regulations, Mark-Vivien Foé left behind a lesson in passion, perseverance, and the unpredictable nature of life. His final match wasn't just a loss for Cameroon, it was a loss for all of football. Foé's story remains a powerful warning. No matter how strong, how skilled, or how young, life is never guaranteed. And sometimes, the greatest victories are in the legacies we leave behind. But he wasn't the only one to fall before a stunned audience. In the next story, another match would see tragedy strike when a young striker's life ended right in front of thousands of fans. January 25, 2004. Estádio de Afonso Henriques in Guimarães, Portugal. The atmosphere crackled with tension as Benfica faced Vitória de Guimarães. It was a cold Sunday night, but the stadium was packed. Both sides desperately needed a win. Among the substitutes, 24-year-old Hungarian striker Miklós Fehér waited. unaware that these would be the final minutes of his life. Fehér had entered the game in the 59th minute. The pitch was soaked and muddy from earlier rain, and neither side could break the deadlock. As the match stretched into its final minutes, he helped set up the only goal of the match, keeping Benfica's title hopes alive. 2 minutes into stoppage time, Fehér positioned himself to delay a quick throw-in from Vitória, deliberately wasting precious seconds. The referee showed him a yellow card. Fehér bent forward, hands on his knees, and then stood upright. He shared a brief, rueful smile with the referee, a smile that would become tragically iconic. Suddenly, Fehér's body tensed. He staggered backward and collapsed onto the pitch. At first, some thought he was faking, but the urgency on the field became immediately apparent. Players and referees rushed to his side, frantically signaling for the medical team. The stadium fell eerily silent as the gravity of the situation became clear. Teammates dropped to their knees in prayer. Emergency medical personnel arrived quickly. The scene was chaotic, players weeping openly, coaches covering their faces, and fans watching in horror. The collective shock was palpable. The match was abandoned. Fehér was rushed to the nearby hospital, less than a mile away. But the efforts proved futile. At 12:10 a.m., Miklós Fehér was pronounced dead. The cause? Cardiac arrhythmia, brought on by hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a heart condition that had gone undetected in pre-season medical tests. News spread rapidly. The football world was stunned. Benfica immediately retired Fehér's number 29 jersey. Memorials sprang up across Portugal and Hungary. Even rival clubs paid their respects. Porto's then manager, José Mourinho, and club officials traveled to Lisbon to honor Fehér. His funeral in Hungary drew thousands of teammates, officials, and fans from across Europe. The entire Benfica squad traveled for the service, presenting his parents with the league championship medal and dedicating their cup victory to his memory.
Camisola do Benfica, o capitão Helder, com o presidente Luís Filipe Vieira.
9 days after his death, Benfica held an emotional tribute at Estádio da Luz. Over 45,000 fans created a mosaic, spelling out 29 Fehér. The entire team wore his name on their jerseys. A minute of silence, with every fan holding a black card, turned the stadium into a sea of mourning. Fehér's final smile, captured on broadcast cameras, became a symbol of hope and unity. His death sparked widespread changes in cardiac screening for athletes. Today, a bust of Miklós Fehér stands at Benfica's stadium entrance, a constant reminder of a life cut short but never forgotten. Miklós Fehér's sudden collapse was a heartbreaking sight, leaving the stadium in silence. Sadly, he wasn't the only player to meet such a fate. In the next story, another athlete also fell mid-match with no chance to recover, proving that sometimes the game's greatest tragedies have nothing to do with the scoreboard.
An Italian soccer player died earlier today on the pitch. Livorno midfielder Piermario Morosini suffering cardiac arrest and collapsing during a Serie B match.
The Stadio Adriatico that day was filled with the usual Serie B energy. Players from Livorno and Pescara moved across the pitch with professional focus, unaware of the tragedy about to unfold. Morosini's career had been marked by perseverance. After coming up through Atalanta's youth system, he played for Udinese, Bologna, Vicenza, Regina, and Padova before joining Livorno on loan. His dedication to the sport was clear: 141 appearances across Italy's top leagues, representing his country at every youth level, and always pushing through adversity. But nothing in his career could prepare anyone for what happened next. In the 31st minute, Morosini suddenly collapsed on the field. He tried to get up, stumbling once, twice, then fell face down, motionless. At first, the severity wasn't clear, and then the reality set in. The referee immediately stopped play. Players from both teams rushed to Morosini's side as medical personnel sprinted onto the field. The stadium fell into an uneasy silence, broken only by the urgent calls of the medical team. The medical response was immediate, but complications arose. An ambulance was blocked by a city police car at the stadium's exit, causing a critical delay of nearly a minute. Some experts later argued that the defibrillator wasn't used promptly, reducing Morosini's survival chances dramatically. Despite the chaos, medics did everything they could. Morosini was placed on a stretcher, conscious but in distress, and rushed toward the waiting ambulance. The entire stadium watched in stunned silence as their worst fears began to materialize. The ambulance sped toward Pescara's Santo Spirito Hospital, but it was already too late. News of Morosini's death broke moments later, confirmed by an explosion of shouts and tears from teammates at the hospital. The match was immediately abandoned, with Livorno leading 2-0, though the score no longer mattered to anyone. The news spread rapidly through Italy and the football world. All matches scheduled for that weekend were canceled as a mark of respect. Players, coaches, and fans struggled to process the sudden loss of a young, promising talent. But the tragedy went deeper than football. Morosini's personal life was marked by incredible hardship. He lost his mother to illness at 15, his father 2 years later, and his brother's suicide soon after. Only his disabled sister survived, now left completely alone. Udinese's Antonio Di Natale and the club quickly pledged to support her, showing the true heart of the football community. The investigation that followed revealed harrowing details. Experts stated that if a defibrillator had been used immediately, Morosini's survival chances could have been as high as 70%. 3 doctors were initially convicted of manslaughter, only to be acquitted years later when courts ruled that the chaotic emergency conditions made a different outcome unlikely. But the medical findings were clear. Morosini suffered from arrhythmogenic cardiomyopathy, a silent killer that can trigger sudden cardiac arrest without warning. The autopsy revealed a scar on his heart, the telltale sign of the disease that claimed his life. The aftermath was immediate and far-reaching. Both Livorno and Vicenza retired Morosini's number 25 jersey. The Curva suit of Atalanta's stadium was renamed in his honor. The award for the best player in Campionato Primavera now bears his name. Even years later, Juventus goalkeeper Gianluigi Buffon dedicated a crucial Champions League win to Morosini's memory. Morosini's death came just 4 weeks after Fabrice Muamba's similar cardiac arrest in England. But where Muamba survived, Morosini did not. The incident triggered renewed debate about athlete health screening, emergency protocols, and the unpredictable nature of genetic heart conditions in sports. All of Italy mourned the loss of Piermario Morosini, not just as a footballer, but as a young man who overcame unimaginable hardship to pursue his dreams. His legacy lives on in the safety protocols and awareness he inspired, and in the countless lives touched by his story. Piermario Morosini's collapse on the field showed how fragile life can be, even for the strongest athletes. But tragedy in sports isn't limited to the pitch. Coming up next, one of racing's greatest legends would lose his life in front of millions in the very sport he helped define.
Dale Earnhardt bidding for a second Daytona 500 checkered flag, and what he hoped would start a season to win a record 8 points championship died in a last lap crash.
February 18, 2001, Daytona International Speedway. The world of motorsports stood as NASCAR legend Dale Earnhardt Sr. met his fate in front of millions of fans watching live. This wasn't just the end of a race, it was the shattering of an icon right before our eyes. Earnhardt, known as the Intimidator, spent the final lap of the Daytona 500 not chasing glory, but protecting his teammate Michael Waltrip and his own son, Dale Earnhardt Jr., from the charging pack behind. It was a selfless act that would become his final legacy. As the white flag waved, Waltrip and Earnhardt Jr. surged ahead. Earnhardt Sr. held the inside line, blocking for them with calculated precision. But coming out of turn 4, chaos erupted. Earnhardt's car made contact with Sterling Marlin, sending him sliding down the track apron. He fought to regain control, but Ken Schrader's car clipped his right rear, launching the number 3 Chevrolet into the wall at over 155 miles per hour. What looked like a routine NASCAR crash quickly turned sinister. As cars crossed the finish line, safety crews rushed to Earnhardt's lifeless vehicle. Ken Schrader, the first to reach him, immediately signaled for help, his face betraying the gravity of the situation. Medical personnel worked desperately to revive the racing legend, But the outcome was inevitable. The impact had caused a fatal basilar skull fracture, an injury that had already claimed other drivers in the months before. At 5:16 p.m. Eastern Time, Dale Earnhardt Sr. was pronounced dead.
Mike Dale was always his own man. He called the restrictor plates that NASCAR used. He said those were for sissies, and he refused to use the new Hans device. It's a head and neck brace.
In a cruel twist of irony, Earnhardt had famously refused to wear the Hans device, a head and neck restraint system that might have saved his life. While other drivers embraced new safety measures, Earnhardt called the device uncomfortable, dismissing it as unnecessary.
But those of us who knew him knew that he was really a very, very unselfish individual off the racetrack. And the irony is that today, for the first time, that I can remember, and I've known this man a long, long time, you saw him be very, very unselfish in those final few laps.
The news spread quickly through the racing world. NASCAR President Mike Helton stood before the media, voice trembling as he delivered the official announcement. This is undoubtedly one of the toughest announcements that I've ever personally had to make. But after the accident in Turn 4 at the end of the Daytona 500, we've lost Dale Earnhardt. Fans immediately looked for someone to blame. Sterling Marlin, the driver who made contact with Earnhardt, received death threats. But Dale Earnhardt Jr. quickly absolved Marlin of responsibility, urging fans to accept that it was a racing accident. The tragedy didn't just claim a racing legend, it forced NASCAR to confront its own safety standards. In the wake of Earnhardt's death, the sport underwent a massive safety overhaul. The Hans device became mandatory. The safer barrier system was developed and installed at tracks nationwide. Car designs changed, focusing on driver protection above all else. Even in death, Earnhardt remained larger than life. His funeral, 4 days later, drew thousands of mourners, from racing royalty to everyday fans. The number 3 car was retired, its legacy preserved for years until its eventual return with Earnhardt's grandson. Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s death marked the end of an era in NASCAR, but it also sparked a safety revolution that has saved countless lives since. His final act of selflessness, protecting his team and family, became the catalyst for change that would protect future generations of drivers. The Intimidator may be gone, but his legacy continues every time a driver walks away from a horrific crash that once would have been fatal. Dale Earnhardt Sr. died a hero, but in doing so, he helped ensure that no other driver would have to die on the track he loved so much. In the next story, another beloved athlete would meet a similar fate on the football field, collapsing mid-game in front of fans and teammates.
Hello there. Yes, we start with tragic news. Phil O'Donnell, the captain of Motherwell, has died after collapsing during his size match against Dundee United.
December 29th, 2007, Fir Park, home of Motherwell Football Club. Fans watched in stunned disbelief as their captain, Phil O'Donnell, collapsed to the turf just as he was about to be substituted against Dundee United. The stadium, filled with devoted supporters, fell silent. What should have been a routine change turned into a nightmare scene no one could ever forget. Phil O'Donnell was more than just a football player. He was a local hero, born in nearby Bellshill, raised on the terraces of Scottish football, and beloved by fans across the country. He started his professional career at just 17 with Motherwell, quickly making his mark by scoring in the legendary 1991 Scottish Cup final against Dundee United. That diving header made him a club legend and earned Motherwell their first major trophy in decades. His talent was undeniable, earning him 2 PFA Scotland Young Player of the Year awards and a coveted move to Celtic in 1994 for a then-record $1.75 million. O'Donnell helped the Hoops secure the 1997 and 98 league title and another Scottish Cup victory, but persistent injuries hampered his progress. After a spell with Sheffield Wednesday in England, he returned to Motherwell in 2004, quickly becoming captain and inspiring a new generation of players, including his own nephew, David Clarkson. On that fateful December day, Motherwell was leading Dundee United 5-3 when O'Donnell signaled to the bench for a substitution. Just as his number appeared on the board, he suddenly collapsed, alone and without contact from any other player. Medical teams rushed onto the field, treating him for several agonizing minutes before an ambulance transported him to nearby Wishaw General Hospital.
The 35-year-old fell to the ground just as he was about to be substituted. After being treated for around 5 minutes on the pitch, he was carried off on a stretcher to a waiting ambulance. He was taken to hospital and his death was later confirmed by the club.
The news broke quickly. Phil O'Donnell had died at 17:18 that evening. The initial post-mortem revealed left ventricular failure, a sudden cardiac event that struck down a seemingly healthy world-class athlete in his prime. In the days that followed, tributes poured in from across the football world. Motherwell's next 2 matches, including a highly anticipated game against Celtic, were postponed as a mark of respect. Fans from rival clubs laid scarves, flowers, and handwritten notes outside Fir Park, transforming the stadium entrance into a sea of mourning. The club later renamed their main stand the Phil O'Donnell Stand, a permanent reminder of his legacy. O'Donnell's funeral at St. Mary's Church in Hamilton drew more than 500 mourners, from legendary managers to ordinary fans, all united in grief. The procession through the streets was silent except for the sound of solemn prayers, and the crowds barely contained tears. The football community, often divided by rivalries, came together in a rare display of unity. What happened to Phil O'Donnell forced clubs across Scotland to re-evaluate their medical protocols. Defibrillators became standard equipment at stadiums, and cardiac screening for players became far more rigorous. His tragic death wasn't in vain. It sparked changes that have likely saved other lives on the pitch. O'Donnell left behind his wife Eileen and 4 children, Megan, Olivia, Christopher, and Luke. The outpouring of support from the football community provided some comfort, but nothing could fill the void left by their beloved husband and father. Teammates, including his nephew David Clarkson, played on with heavy hearts, dedicating their performances to his memory. Motherwell now honors O'Donnell's legacy every year with an annual sponsored walk from Fir Park to Celtic Park, raising money for heart charities. His famous number 10 shirt hasn't been retired, but it remains unworn, a silent tribute to the man who gave everything for his club. Phil O'Donnell's story isn't just about a tragic end. It's about a life lived with passion, humility, and dedication to the beautiful game. He played with courage, led with integrity, and inspired everyone who knew him. His legacy lives on, not just in trophies or stands named after him, but in the hearts of all who witnessed his final match. Phil O'Donnell's sudden collapse reminded fans how unpredictable sports can be, no matter the stage. Not long before, basketball had its own heartbreaking moment. In the next story, a rising star's life ended right in front of a packed crowd.
We sat in this chair last night at this time, shocked by the death of Hank Gathers, Loyola Marymount. 24 hours later, pretty much still the same feeling.
March 4th, 1990, Loyola Marymount University. The packed Gersten Pavilion echoed with excitement as the Lions faced off against Portland in the West Coast Conference Tournament semifinals. Hank Gathers, a 6'7" powerhouse, was in peak form. Just moments earlier, he'd thrown down a thunderous alley-oop dunk and slapped hands with teammate Terrell Lowry. The Lions led 23-13, the crowd roaring with each fast break. But then, silence. Gathers, jogging back to defend, suddenly veered toward midcourt. He took 2 steps, then collapsed, hard. The sound of his 220-pound frame hitting the hardwood cut through the gym. Even if you weren't watching him directly, everyone heard the impact. Players from both teams rushed to his side. Gathers struggled to get up, insisting, "I don't want to lie down." But within moments, he lost consciousness. Medical staff swarmed the court. In the stands, Gathers' mother, Lucille, and aunt rushed down from the bleachers, desperate to reach him. The PA announcer tried to keep order, telling fans the game was delayed. But as minutes ticked by, the reality set in. Gathers was loaded onto a stretcher, oxygen mask covering his face, and rushed to Daniel Freeman Marina Hospital. At 6:55 p.m., doctors pronounced Hank Gathers dead. He was just 23 years old. The cause is hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a heart muscle disorder that often goes undetected. The entire West Coast Conference tournament was immediately canceled. Loyola Marymount, as regular season champions, received the automatic NCAA tournament bid, but the victory felt hollow. The days following were filled with grief and questions. Gathers had collapsed earlier that season in December during a game against UC Santa Barbara. Diagnosed with an irregular heartbeat, he was placed on medication and cleared to play after missing just 2 games. He'd complained that the medication made him sluggish, and his dosage was gradually reduced. Some suspected he wasn't taking it consistently, especially on game days.
Before the game in the locker room, Hank said, "I feel as strong as ever." And we just don't understand how a man that strong could leave us so quickly.
And the shockwaves rippled far beyond Loyola Marymount. That same night, across the country in Albany, New York, Gather's childhood friends Doug Overton and Lionel Simmons, now playing for LaSalle, learned of his death during their own tournament game. The news brought Simmons to tears in his mother's arms. In the days that followed, the Loyola Marymount community gathered to mourn. Father James Loughran, the university president, addressed students and staff.
"This is a great tragedy. There's no explanation for it that I know of. Our whole campus is grieving."
Loyola Marymount, the regular season champion, received the conference's automatic bid to the NCAA tournament.
The basketball court where Gathers fell became a shrine where flowers, jerseys, and heartfelt messages piled up. The number 44 was everywhere. Coach Paul Westhead, struggling to find words, said simply, "He was our guy as a player and as a person. He was the leader of our team. He was the fiber of what we are." Teammate Bo Kimble, who had transferred to LMU with Gathers from USC, broke down in tears at a press conference.
I know he's listening. I just love him so much, and I'm gonna miss you, Hank."
The NCAA tournament became a stage for tributes rather than competition.
To take his first free throw left-handed in honor of his friend, Hank Gathers.
Kimble vowed to shoot his first free throw of each game left-handed, a nod to Gathers' own attempt to overcome his poor free throw shooting. Incredibly, Kimble went 3 for 3 with those left-handed shots during LMU's historic run to the Elite Eight. Gathers' legacy extended far beyond the basketball court. His story became a cautionary tale for athletes with heart conditions, prompting changes in medical protocols and athlete monitoring. Loyola Marymount retired his jersey number 44 and later unveiled a statue in his honor outside Gersten Pavilion. The pain of that day still resonates through the basketball world. Miami Heat coach Eric Spoelstra, who played for Portland that fateful night, later reflected,
"The absolute silence in the gym after he fell, it's something I'll never forget."
Even decades later, the memory of Hank Gathers serves as both inspiration and warning, a reminder of sports fragility and the enduring power of brotherhood. This was more than just the loss of a basketball star. It was the silencing of a thunderbolt whose impact is still felt today. Hank Gathers' final moments, witnessed by thousands, continue to echo through arenas and hearts across the country. Hank Gathers' death was a heartbreaking moment in basketball history, leaving fans and teammates in shock. But years earlier, baseball witnessed its own dark day. Coming up next, a player was fatally struck during a game, the only time it ever happened in Major League history.
Well, 90 years ago this season, the Cleveland Indians lost a baseball player in a fatal accident which happened on the diamond itself.
August 16th, 1920, the Cleveland Indians took the field against the New York Yankees. But what happened next would change baseball forever. Ray Chapman, beloved shortstop, stepped up to bat for what would be the last time in his life. The fifth inning began with Cleveland leading 3-0. On the mound stood Carl Mays, a controversial pitcher known for his submarine delivery. He threw with a low sidearm motion that made the ball rise sharply toward right-handed batters like Chapman. The afternoon sun hung low, making it even harder to see the ball. Chapman had always crowded the plate. He was a fearless hitter, never shy about standing close to get a better shot at inside pitches. But that day, that habit proved fatal. Mays wound up and fired a fastball. Chapman never moved. The ball slammed into his left temple with a sickening crack, so loud that even Babe Ruth, standing 250 feet away in right field, heard it. Many fans thought it was the sound of the bat connecting with the ball, but this was something far worse. The ball bounced away. Third baseman Aaron Ward charged the rolling ball, thinking it was a fair hit. But Chapman collapsed at home plate, blood pouring from his ears, nose, and mouth. The stadium went silent. Home plate umpire Tommy Connolly screamed for a doctor. Chapman's teammates rushed to his side. Carl Mays stood frozen on the mound, shocked by what had just happened. Chapman tried to stand, mumbling about his wife's ring, but his knees buckled. He fell unconscious and never woke up again. Doctors rushed Chapman to St. Lawrence Hospital, just a short drive from the Polo Grounds. They performed emergency surgery to relieve swelling in his brain, but the damage was too severe. At 4:30 a.m. the next morning, Ray Chapman was dead, becoming the only Major League Baseball player to die as a direct result of an on-field injury.
The only Major League Baseball player to die because of an injury during the game.
The news devastated the baseball world. Chapman was only 29 years old, newly married, and expecting his first child. Thousands of mourners attended his funeral at the Cathedral of St. John the Evangelist in Cleveland. His teammates wore black armbands for the rest of the season.
When Raymond Chapman died from that baseball pitch, baseball fans donated money to cover funeral costs and to buy this monument.
Chapman's death sparked immediate changes in baseball. Umpires now replace dirty or damaged balls during games, a rule that still stands today. The spitball, once common, was banned after the 1920 season. Calls for batting helmets began, though it took decades before they became mandatory. But the tragedy didn't end with new rules. Chapman's grave at Lakeview Cemetery became a place of mystery and remembrance. Baseball fans from around the world left flowers, coins, and memorabilia at his monument. Even today, anonymous visitors honor his memory with these tributes. The Cleveland Indians dedicated the rest of their season to Chapman. Inspired by their lost teammate, they won the American League pennant and then the World Series, their first championship. Chapman's sacrifice became a rallying cry for the team and the city. Carl Mays, the pitcher responsible, continued his career, but never escaped the shadow of that fatal pitch. Some players refused to bat against him. Many fans called for his permanent ban from baseball, but Mays insisted it was an accident, a claim supported by the district attorney, who cleared him of any wrongdoing. Today, Ray Chapman's legacy lives on in every pitch thrown, every helmet worn, and every clean baseball used in a game. His tragic death changed the sport forever, making it safer for generations to come. And at Lakeview Cemetery, the tributes continue, silent reminders of the price paid for progress in America's pastime. Ray Chapman's tragic death from a pitch remains one of baseball's most unforgettable losses. Coming up next is the story of a wide receiver who collapsed during a game and never got back up.
If there's someone who has nearly the entire country praying for him tonight, it's Buffalo Bills safety Damar Hamlin, whose collapse on the football field on Monday has really shaken all of them.
On October 24, 1971, more than 54,000 fans packed Tiger Stadium for the Detroit Lions versus the Chicago Bears showdown. In the fourth quarter, wide receiver Chuck Hughes lined up on offense. Unaware, he was about to become the only NFL player to die on the field during a game. Hughes was far from a superstar, but he had grit. Drafted in 1967 by the Philadelphia Eagles, he was traded to Detroit in 1970. Most of his playing time came on special teams, but he was always ready to step in when called. That fateful Sunday, he was filling in due to an injury. Late in the game, Detroit trailed 28-23. Quarterback Greg Landry threw a 32-yard pass. Hughes made the catch, his first of the season, taking the Lions to the Bears' 37-yard line. The crowd roared, sensing a comeback. 3 plays later, tight end Charlie Sanders dropped a pass near the end zone. Hughes, used as a decoy, began jogging back to the huddle. Suddenly, around the 20-yard line, he grabbed his chest and collapsed face down.
On the sideline, I played defense. Chuck was an offensive player, runs down the field on a deep pattern. And he runs all the way down, right by us, probably all the way, maybe to the 10-yard line. The ball went someplace else. Chuck turned around, if I remember, and was jogging back right in front of us to the huddle.
Players and officials rushed to his side. Bears linebacker Dick Butkus frantically waved for medical help. The stadium fell silent as doctors and trainers surrounded the motionless receiver. Dick Butkus urgently signaled for medical help. Hughes was taken off the field by stretcher. An ambulance arrived quickly, but it was too late. Hughes was pronounced dead at Henry Ford Hospital at 5:34 p.m. He was just 28 years old. Shock rippled through the stadium. But in 1971, player safety protocols were virtually non-existent. The game resumed after a brief delay, finishing in a stunned silence. The autopsy revealed undiagnosed advanced arteriosclerosis. His coronary artery was 75% blocked. Hughes had suffered a fatal heart attack brought on by a blood clot. It was later determined that this was likely his second heart attack. The first had gone unnoticed. Hughes left behind his wife, Sharon, and son, Brandon. All 40 of his Lions teammates attended the funeral in San Antonio, Texas. The entire NFL community mourned the loss.
And Mooney tells me all 49 members of the 1971 Lions team attended the funeral in San Antonio just 4 days later.
The tragedy raised serious questions about player health screenings and safety protocols. Sadly, many of those concerns went unaddressed for decades. The stadium's silence that day still echoes through NFL history. These athletes gave their all on the field, the track, and the court, only to lose their lives in front of the very fans who admired them most. Which of these moments shocked you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe for more stories like this.